Hi, everyone. Welcome to Exploring CarmenZoom, the basics. We'll get started here in just a moment. All right, looks like we've got about 36 participants with us today so far. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me move some things out of the way here. There we go. I'm Queenie Chow, and I'm joined by my distance education and e-learning. Whoops, hold on one second. I'm getting a phone call from my family. There we go. Happens to the best of us. So we're both from the Office of Distance Education and e-learning, and I'll be presenting the bulk of the content today. Tara will be answering questions that you bring up in the chat.
Hello. I will also be sharing links and resources over in the chat as they become relevant. So you'll see you can ask questions over there. I might sometimes let you know that the question you've asked is something that we're going to cover later. At other times, I might let you know it's covered in a different workshop, or I might give you a link to a resource over that content. If you have questions, feel free to put them there. And we'll also be administrating a couple of polls through the workshop.
Awesome. So that's a great segue. Sorry, my family keeps calling me at a great time. So this is our agenda for today. I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll just to see what people are most interested in based on this agenda. And you should see that pop up on your screen now. We'll give everybody a few moments to decide. Platforms is just kind of what you're using Zoom on, whether you're using the app, et cetera, et cetera. Meeting settings, that'll be stuff like passwords. You might have noticed if you used set up a Zoom meeting before that you have to put in various settings on whether you use passwords or certain things. We'll look into that. Recording settings is basically just how to make a recording and where you might record that. Attendance report lets you know who's in your meeting, and then of course we'll just have a couple of resources at the end for you to look into. So let's see, I'm going to give everyone a few seconds. It looks like some people are still voting here. We've got about 32 of 38 voted. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results back out with everyone. So, okay. So these numbers have shifted a bit since we first started offering this workshop. It looks like a lot more people are, a lot of people are overwhelmingly interested in attendance reports, but there looks like there's a pretty good spread across everything. So we will spend some time talking about each of those things. One of the things that we want to do in these workshops is to also show you some of the features in here and get you thinking about when you do helpful for you to use as an instructor. So go ahead and stop sharing this poll. So for instance, if I saw that people were overwhelmingly uninterested in one of these topics, I might spend less time on that and vice versa. So let's go ahead and take that away. I'm going to go ahead and turn my phone off. I apologize. I usually never get phone calls. Okay, so let's start out real simple, which is basically, you probably know at this point that you can use Zoom across various devices. So that could be a phone, a tablet, or a computer. So I just want to ask real quick, since we're on this topic, if you could go into the chat for me and just type in what device are you using Zoom on right now? I see a lot of answers for laptop, computer, iPad here or there. Oh, we've got some phone users. Okay, great. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up was that's a really good thing to bring, just to bring our attention to, because our audience can be using multiple platforms and they might look differently across those multiple platforms. And often each individual might not have each one of those devices or might not have tested it on each one of those devices. So just a quick overview, if you're using a phone or a tablet, you will have to have the app installed. So you want to go ahead and do that. If for some reason you go to a Zoom link and it's not already installed, you actually get prompted anyway. On the computer, you can use the app or the browser, but the app gives you full functionality, whereas if you just go to it from, say, Chrome or Firefox browser, you might get limited functionality. I won't go through the whole list, nor can I necessarily memorize that. There are charts online that tell you, but basically, one of the main features I've noticed, for instance, is if you don't have the app installed, often you are not able to screen share. So if you're just attending somebody else's meeting, that's probably okay, like for instance, right now. But if you are the instructor and you want to share content such as your PowerPoint slides, you would want to make sure you have the app installed. So some of those reasons, as I mentioned, it can look a little bit differently across devices. Some of the settings that you have might be a little bit different. And then just again, bringing our awareness that just as I saw in your list here from the chat, from your responses, students are likely to be using mobile devices and they're likely to be using any of those three things we mentioned. So here real quick is a screenshot of my coworker's phone while she was running Zoom. And it was really nice for her to be able to provide these for us, because for those of you on a laptop, you see kind of full functionality, you see a lot of different things at once. One of the things I wanted to bring your attention to, for instance, on mobile device is that often you can only either choose to see the webcam or the content that the person is sharing, or you can switch over to, say, type in chat, but you wouldn't be able to see both. So as an instructor, something you might think about is maybe you were thinking originally you would have something up on screen and people could type in the chat to react to it or tell you something about it. And just keeping in mind that for people on mobile, they would be having to swipe back and forth, which maybe doesn't mean that you don't do that exercise, but it might help you think about how you might modify it so that it would work for both situations. And also maybe it means that you might need to give people a little bit more time, because knowing that some people might have to go back and forth. So that, let's see, I want to make sure I mention all my main points that are helpful for you. And I think it seems pretty obvious. As an instructor, I would recommend that you use Zoom on a computer and using the app, at least when you're presenting, just to get that full functionality there. And another thing that we often recommend to people is to, if you're unsure or you've got a class coming up and you want to make sure you're really prepared, I think some of my best experiences of learning Zoom are honestly just testing with my colleagues or testing with some people in a low pressure situation, just to say, okay, push this button, or what do you see when I push this button, or I do this thing. It really just helps you kind of wrap your mind around what it looks like. But the good thing is, it's not terribly different, but just know that there sometimes will be buttons in a little bit different places, but again, not too bad. So I want to pause for a second and just see what kind of questions do you have about using Zoom on different platforms? Go ahead and type that in the chat and we can address that before we move on. Okay, so if that comes up later, we'll go ahead and address it. Oh, we got one question here. Can you stop Zoom from working on, say, a phone for students? I think the question here is basically, can you make them use something that's not a phone? If that is the question, I would say I'm not aware of an option to restrict what device people use it on. You could certainly either recommend that to students and kind of see who has access or doesn't to certain devices. But I would say for the most part, it would make sense to err on the side of making sure that your content could work across the board, especially right now, since we have need to be using these tools and people maybe can't attend in person. Will it vary the speed they can take an exam? In terms of being in Zoom, I don't believe so. It sounds like maybe you're administering an exam. I imagine you're administering an exam outside of Zoom. So I'm not sure it would make a difference in that regard, but feel free to ask us a little bit later if I didn't quite hit on that question. Had a student sharing her presentation from an iPad with lots of issues. Is this because she wasn't using the app? So if she's on the iPad, she would have to be using the app. The issues often that I've seen could just be connectivity issues. So sometimes Wi-Fi is not great at somebody's, at wherever somebody's using the Wi-Fi. So that is usually the issue in my experience. Especially if people are staying home. Some people are in rural areas where their Wi-Fi is not fast, it's not great. Or they might be in a house with, let's say, 5 or 7 other people. I had somebody on a support call once who had an issue like that. She was sharing a house with a lot of people and everybody's kind of on their various devices, kind of taking up bandwidth. So we've had instances just with coworkers that I work with who, when they have to do a workshop like this, they have to talk to everybody in their house and say, hey, get off of Netflix, get off of your devices, go do something that's not online so I can have the bandwidth for my workshop. So these are just all realities. Sometimes the connectivity is just struggling. How would you get the app for a laptop? So you can actually search for that on the Zoom website through maybe just type into Google Zoom app and it should come up with a list of apps that for various operating systems. So that is very easy to get. And I think oftentimes you might even get prompted by your computer, maybe the first time you try to log into a Zoom room or something like that. It should prompt you, but if not, you can find that online. And these are all questions, by the way. For some reason you can't find it, don't feel lost. You can always email carmen@osu.edu with any of these questions if for some reason I misunderstood your question or for some reason you can't find the option we talk about. So let's go through a few more of these. Can you screen share on all platforms? Yes, you can. It can look again, it can look a little bit differently, but you can share, yeah, you can share across all platforms. And if you're on a computer, just make sure you have the app. When the instructor is using laptop or PC and students are using iPads or phones, any issues or tips need to know? I think my main tip there would just be to be aware that they might be on a different device and just be aware that it might look a little bit differently. But as long as the person presenting is using the most fully featured version, which is laptop or desktop with the app, then other people can consume your content relatively easily, I would say. So I think one of my favorite ways to interact with the audience, as you can probably see, is through the chat, just because people can really type out their thoughts and I can kind of see many of them at once. I think the chat is one of the main things. Like I said, on mobile, I can go back and show you that screenshot again. So on mobile, you would have to click more, hit chat, and then your screen kind of turns into this chat screen here on the right. And so you can only see either the chat screen or the presenter view on the left, but you don't get to see them at the same time, whereas on a desktop you do. So like I said, people can still see your shared content or your webcam, people can still use the chat, but you just might think about, okay, they might not be able to see both of them as easily. So I think those are honestly my main, whoops, might have lost my place. Honestly, my main tips on that. And just kind of be in touch with your students. Like I have Tara helping me monitor chat. So if for some reason I'm muted or there's something that I'm missing, it's really helpful to have her there because she can kind of interrupt me, which I think she was trying to do. So go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the thing that I see the most with people, especially on the phone view, is just the mobile app. has a lot of the tools, an extra click in. So on the desktop, I can see all of the like chat, polling, I can see all the things across the bottom. If you are asking your students to they're watching your lecture and you ask them to go over and put something in chat and they're on a phone and they're holding it, you know, in the vertical portrait orientation, it may take them a second to tap through all the options they have to do to switch the view to the chat window. That's not a big deal. You can either let them know beforehand how to do that, or just kind of accommodate a little extra time for some of them to get there.
Yes, thank you for that. That's a great tip. I think a theme that I've been seeing across a lot of our workshops is just to kind of give a little grace to students, have some patience with their tech issues and our own. We all experience them. And it's just good to know that if things look a little bit differently, because I know that for someone who's used a lot of video conference softwares, a lot of times I might say, oh, just click on this. You should see this button. It's at the bottom left of your screen. And I'm really used to doing that because I used to be in tech support too. But that can be a very tough piece of advice to give if you're saying that and they say, oh, well, I don't have that button at the bottom left of my screen. So it's just something to be aware of, that if you run into something like that, it might just be a case of, okay, let's think about it. If you don't have that button there, let's look around a little bit and see where you might find that. So that might be something that, again, it's just good for you to be aware of. So when you're talking through stuff, you know that there's a possibility it could be looking a little differently. And then let me scroll through real quick and see if there are any other questions we can answer for now on platforms. Let's see, with pre-recorded lectures, do I just send the link to students? Oh, I think Jason actually answered that for us. Thanks, Jason. And then, okay, and Tara put links on using, is that Zoom for phone? Tara put the slides, okay. So for using Zoom on a phone, I would just Google that. Zoom actually has a lot of really great support articles out there that will talk specifically about the limitations. So they actually have really good charts that show you, for instance, what features you might have on a desktop versus, say, iOS or Android or something like that. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what features show or don't show, I think that would be the best way to do it. And then for me, despite all those help articles, I honestly think the best way is to test drive it. So I think most of us, the good thing is I don't have a functioning iPad right now that I could test it on that. But for instance, most of us probably do have a smartphone that we could test it on, and you can log into the same Zoom room with multiple devices of yours. So even last night, I was experimenting with logging into a Zoom room on my desktop and then also using my Chromebook and my phone just to kind of see across the board what that experience looks like and share screen on those different devices so that you can see what that experience looks like from multiple angles. So you could totally do that on various devices that you have or that your family has, or just test with some colleagues and talk about how things look one way or another. That's been my favorite method, honestly, is just to test drive it myself. And then if you need to supplement your knowledge, Zoom does have lots of really good help articles out there. And then we have the Resource Center.
And I'm just dropping a couple of links specific to that in the chat as well.
Awesome. And then I've got one question that came up. I'm gonna look at this real quick. Since my class will be hybrid, 15 face-to-face and 15 remote, can I use Zoom at the same time I'm using a thumb drive with my lecture on the computers in the classroom? Yes, you can. And when you share screen, so there's a share screen button at the bottom of your screen. So when it's your room and you hit share screen, you will of course have the ability to do that. If you tried it now, I think it'll give you kind of a message to say, hey, you can't share right now because you're not the host. But when it's your own room, you will be able to do that. And then you'll have some options that you can choose. So you can share screen as in share your entire computer screen. Or what I'm doing right now, for instance, is when I hit share screen, I just chose to share my PowerPoint file. So as I'm scrolling through my PowerPoint, you're only seeing my slides. There's actually other stuff on my screen that you don't see. And that's really helpful for me because I can have the chat up without kind of having that mirrored to you. So those are some things that I would definitely experiment a little bit with, especially with a colleague or two, just to make sure you're all feeling pretty solid about it. So again, if you have questions, our Resource Center has articles. Zoom has support articles that you can Google for, and you can always email carmen@osu.edu, and we'll connect you with somebody on our support team. So that, thank you for all of those great questions on platforms. I'm glad we made time for that particular topic, because I feel like sometimes it's a little bit overlooked. We just say, oh, it's so easy, just join on this device or that device. And it's really nice to have somebody say, okay, listen, it is easy, but there's a couple things we want to think about. So let's move on. Whoops, let's see. I'm going to come out a little bit. I feel like my slides got a little bit junky for just a second. Hold on one second here. Okay, there we go. So we're dipping our toes in. I feel like we've dipped our toes in to think about what Zoom looks like. And I want to talk about 3 pieces of terminology real quick. So we're going to get into a demo here in just a second where you can follow along with me, and we'll create a room. But I do want to make sure that I touch a little bit on the terminology that we use when we speak about Zoom, because if you do get on a support call, this will help you use the correct language. And also, as you're looking at some of these trainings, you can make sure you know exactly what we're talking about when we refer to these things. So first of all, the first one you should be very familiar with. So anytime somebody says Carmen, I think we all understand that that means Carmen Canvas, specifically, or you might call it Canvas, but that's specifically our course management system. So the thing that makes it a little bit goofy is that we call Zoom CarmenZoom. So quick explanation, if you want to nerd out about the terminology a little bit, just like Canvas exists outside of OSU branding it and making it our own, Zoom also previously and currently exists as an application outside of OSU, branding it and making it our own for you all to use. So we call it Carmen Canvas, we call it CarmenZoom. Those are just branded instances of something that exists as a product outside of us. The weird thing is we do call Carmen Canvas Carmen, and we do call CarmenZoom Zoom. So I would say, for at least the sake of this workshop and in the kind of the ecosystem of OSU, when we say Zoom, we actually do mean CarmenZoom. We mean the instance that you sign into with your name.number. And then that is slightly different from the Canvas integration of Zoom. And we'll get into that in just a second. So that specifically refers to when you access Zoom from your Carmen course. And just to get a quick poll, because I've been talking for a moment, so in the chat, I would just love to know if you currently already are using Zoom and have set up your own meeting. Do you use just Zoom outside at carmenzoom.osu, or do you use the Canvas integration? So these are the 2 options. You can just type 1 or 2, actually, if that makes it a little bit easier. So 1 or 2 or both, yeah, it's fine. Okay, good to know. And I'm just kind of curious, is this new information to you that you can get to CarmenZoom or to Zoom via both these methods? And that's just a yes or no. Is this new information to you, or did you already know this? Ah, lots of yeses. Okay, that makes me happy. Because we have been hearing, so for the past several months, Tara and Jason and I, we've all been on several workshops the past several months with various people, and we have felt this confusion around it. So I thought it was very helpful for us to say, yes, there are 2 ways to get into CarmenZoom. So, and you can feel free to try that out right now on your computer if you want, but if you visit carmenzoom.osu.edu, which honestly I will shortly here, so feel free to do that. And the second way is if you have a Carmen course of yours open, I don't think that Zoom is there by default, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's there in your navigation on the left-hand side of your course by default. You have to go into go into settings and add it to your navigation. But once Zoom is added to your navigation in Carmen, potentially you don't ever have to go to carmenzoom.osu. You can just use Zoom setting up meetings for your course or office hours or anything like that right from within your Carmen course. So you might say like, well, why wouldn't I just do that all the time? You might. There's a couple of features that that make the integration really nice because it shows up in your Carmen course, but there's a couple of features that are a little bit either more difficult to use or that maybe even don't exist in the integration. So polling and breakout rooms are two things that if you are interested in, even though you can set up your Zoom meetings in your Carmen course, you might still need to go to that first option, to that full website, and adjust some of those settings. So let's get into that. There's a couple of reasons I want to bring your attention. There's a couple of reasons that you might want to be aware of these things. And the two main ones I want to talk about are security and ways to engage your students. So the first one is security. There's different ways that you can set up passwords and things like that to make sure that you're not getting Zoom bombed, that people who are in your meeting, in your class, are actually the ones who are supposed to be there. And then secondly, we talked a little, kind of referred to polls and breakout rooms. So those are some things that are a little bit different. So before we do the demo, I just want to bring your attention to these three kind of levels of, I guess, security / signing into Zoom that you can do. So you'll see this in the meeting settings if you haven't already, and you might have been wondering, what the heck is the difference between these things? So SSO, it stands for single sign-on. And it might also be called shibboleth in other instances of things that we use here at OSU. So single sign-on, SSO, shibboleth. For us, that all means the same thing, and that means that if you turn that option on, that people have to log in with their active OSU name.number and password. So the same one we use for email and Carmen and everything else. So that's what SSO means. The passcode or password in Zoom is a numerical password. So that is an additional level of security that you can put on your room. And then registration, that one is not as much of a security thing as much as when people sign in, if you want them to, they will be able to provide their name and their email, which doesn't have to be their OSU email. It could even be a Gmail, etc. So reasons why you might use registration, for instance, might be if you're expecting people in your class or in your meeting that for some reason aren't part of the OSU system. So they would not be able to sign in with their name.number email, then you might want to use the registration option to let them sign in with some sort of name and some sort of email that's not the OSU one. So before we move into the demo, I wanted to pause real quick and see what questions do you have for now? And we'll pause again after the demo too, so feel free if you want to do that first. If we put registration on, does that mean the whole class would have to log in that way, not just the non-Ohio State people? That is, yes, that is my impression, yes. Because it really is just an option that you check or uncheck. Is the passcode a number you give or one that the attendees create? The passcode is automatically generated by Zoom, but you can change it to whatever you want as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it so you can see what it looks like on my end. And so to do that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. And I'm just going to switch gears real quick here. So I'll click back on share screen, and this time I'm going to share my whole entire desktop instead of just the PowerPoint, because that would allow me to show a couple different screens. So if this looks really crazy, bear with me for just a moment. So the reason I wanted to have dual screens on here, these are just two browsers side by side. I wanted to show you those two methods of logging in that we talked about. I'm gonna check my time real quick here. So the first method, CarmenZoom.osu.edu. And the second method, I'm gonna actually log into a Carmen sandbox course that I have. So they both look very similar, but I'll go ahead and sign into CarmenZoom.osu.edu. So that's on the left, first option there. I'm going to make things just a little bit smaller for now. And then let me go ahead and log into my Carmen course. And then I have a sandbox course right here. So I might be kind of pinching these windows back and forth just to make sure the navigation bars show up. So the first option, let's talk about this. I've got a little bar here that's in my way. I'm gonna move it real quick. Okay. So let's talk about the first option here. This is kind of what things will look like. You see that you've got your profile that you can set up. All of my meetings are in here. A webinar is something you would have to request specifically from Carmen at OSU. So there's some details about that there, but we won't be talking about that today. Any recordings that you make will show up here. So if you are intending on recording your class, that's there. There's a whole list of settings here that I'm not going to go through today. You're going to be bored to tears, but they are actually very interesting and important for you to go through. So if you want to make time, I would say it probably won't take you any more than 10 minutes. Go into the settings, and they're pretty self-explanatory, but it's worth it to read through these just to know what you have available. So I would go through these and decide what kind of things I want to turn on and off. There's recording settings here as well, and telephone option settings. So I just wanted to show you where that is. I think you're perfectly capable of looking through those, so I won't bore you with that, but it is worth going through, I will say that. And then reports is where you would find attendance. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's talk about meetings real quick. There's two different types of meetings. So once you're in Zoom, so you won't see this big list probably like I have, but there's a personal meeting room that's already set up for you. And so the difference between a personal meeting room and the meeting that you just set up, like a new meeting on your own, is that the personal meeting room is already there for you by default. So if you want to think of a kind of real life example to help you kind of wrap your mind around that, the personal meeting room is kind of like your office, right? You get hired, hopefully you get an office, but we'll just pretend you all do. So, or that I mean, obviously I don't have one either. So you get hired, you get an office. That office is yours to use. It's just there, it's default, it's available. You don't have to book it. It belongs to you. So think about your personal meeting room like that. But if you're having, let's say, a meeting with other people, you might not decide to always have it in your office. You might actually make a, book a separate meeting room so you can use that for multiple people or, whatever. So personal meeting room is there. I like to use it as an on-the-fly thing. And so I don't have this in my slides, but I use it so much that I do want to tell you about it. There is a link shortener that OSU has called go.osu.edu. And sorry for the tangent, but I promise it's really helpful. So go.osu lets you shorten links. So once you have your personal meeting room there by default, you could copy the link and shorten it to something. So for me, you might say that your Go link is go.osu.edu/Queenie Chow meeting room, or make it something short and easy to remember. Then you don't have to worry about knowing this entire crazy invite link. And you could actually just on the fly say, hey, meet me in my room, here's the Go link, and you can kind of all get to it easily. So that's my one tangent tip. But that said, let's go ahead and look at upcoming meetings. So if I go to schedule a meeting, and I'll give you a few moments, feel free to visit CarmenZoom.osu.edu. I'll kind of type that out for you one more time. So it's CarmenZoom.osu.edu if you want to follow along. And there's a schedule a meeting button, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Let's go through these options real quick. So topic, you might say this is, a lecture room, you might say recitation, or, you might actually put the title of your class there. Don't worry about this template for now. I'm just going to go through the main options. So for when, this is very similar to any kind of calendaring system you've seen. If it's a recurring meeting, so people do ask me, I think the main questions I get are, how should I set it up for office hour? Or how do I set it up for lecture? I'm going to do lecture first. So let's say this is a class. And let's say my class, I want them to meet Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. So there's our situation. So I might click recurring meeting, right? And here's stuff that obviously looks pretty familiar probably. So weekly, what did we say? Tuesday and Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. And then we'll say here, 11 a.m. So kind of put in your time. Here's the duration. If it ends at noon, that's fine. So 11 to noon, make sure you're in your right time zone. It should already be. And then here you can just maybe put the last date of the semester, or you can kind of count occurrences if you want. Just depends on what you're using this room for. So if it's my lecture, I would just put like whatever the end of the semester, whenever you decide you're done meeting with people. This is the registration thing I talked about. If this is for lecture, I usually don't ever turn this on. I just kind of leave that off. But if you want people who are outside of the university to have to put in a name and an email for themselves, you can turn this on. So a situation you might have that, for instance, you might have a meeting with colleagues where you have some collaborators who are coming in from outside of OSU, and you want to make sure you have some sort of attendance record there, then go ahead and turn that on to make sure people have an option to type in their information. Don't worry about Schedule 4. That's if you have someone schedule meetings for you, but we're not covering that today. Meeting password, this is on by default. I do recommend you keep it on. OSU's cybersecurity team recommends that we keep it on. It just helps make sure that the people who are in your room are the people who should be there. I just keep these off. People always have the option to turn on or off their video. So that kind of doesn't necessarily matter. I wouldn't worry about it. Audio, I do both just to give people a telephone option. If for some reason they're really having connectivity issues, they can at least call in with a phone number and listen to the audio of the course if for some reason, or the meeting, if for some reason they can't join. So these are the meeting options I want to talk about too. These are really great. So enable join before host. That was on for this meeting that you joined today. So you would have noticed that you clicked on the workshop link. Many of you were here early. So you clicked on the workshop link and it kind of gave you a message to let you know, hey, you're here. And I also turned on enable waiting room so that I actually had to, or we had to let you in. So I was kind of prepping for the session, making sure my slides are put together. I was talking to Tara and talking to Jason in here before the meeting, just to make sure we had everything prepared and everybody knew what we were doing. And that way I can be in the room, I can get set up, and I can do all that without participants kind of hanging around and seeing under the hood. So that would probably be something I would recommend for your class as well, so that let's say you have several students, they can all kind of get set up and join and not worry about watching the clock for it to strike 11, but they can kind of get signed on and they'll just get let in. You can just let them in whenever you're ready. This is the option for single sign-on. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. So I don't know if you can see my cursor. I'm going to draw some big circles around this with my cursor. It doesn't say single sign-on or SSO or shibboleth, but that's what this option means. Only authenticated users can join. And because we're OSU, authenticated users means single sign-on, name.number for us. So as long as you know everybody in your meeting is from OSU, go ahead and turn this on. I don't think there's any reason not to if you know that everyone in your meeting is supposed to be an active OSU person. This one I won't cover too much, but you can pre-assign breakout rooms now in Zoom. So we'll talk about that. This workshop is the first in the series of 3. So we actually talk about breakout rooms, I think, in the 3rd session. So sign up for that on keepteaching@osu.edu if you want to learn way more about that, or get a jump start and find our help articles on it on the Resource Center. Don't worry about this last one for now. If it's relevant for you, you can email the Carmen team to find out more. And then alternative hosts is really valuable too. So if you have TAs or somebody who you want to have full access to this room or to be able to help you out during the session, go ahead and type their OSU email in here, and that'll ensure that when they sign in, they see the full set of host controls. So that is everything. I hope you got a chance to do that on your end too. So I wanted to show you all of the options here first, and then let's talk about the integration real quick. So on the left-hand side, that was going to CarmenZoom.osu.edu to set up a meeting, and then on this side, this is my Carmen Sandbox course, and I've got Zoom added here as a navigation link. If you don't already have that, you just come over here to settings. So if you were to click on settings, Zoom will probably be down here somewhere. So all you have to do is grab Zoom and drag it up into your navigation bar. There we go. And then don't forget to scroll to the bottom and hit save. Okay, so I made my nav pretty simple so that there's not a whole lot of distractions. I'm sure you have more things showing than this. But once you have Zoom available, then you can click on Zoom within your Carmen course. It looks like this, and then you'll have your schedule a new meeting button. So I'm going to go through this real quick. So if you want to go through this with me, feel free. But let's say I have a lecture. So since we already talked about everything on the left-hand side, I'm just going to kind of fly through this. So I'll just be quiet for a second, and you can feel free to click through your own version or watch me. So let's say that's 11 a.m. recurring weekly. I'm just going to say Monday for now. Let's keep it simple. So weekly on Monday, 11 to noon. That's 1 hour duration. And just for simplicity, again, I'm going to say 4 occurrences. I'm not going to require registration. That is fine off. Both is good. Meeting passcode is fine. And you might have noticed, if you were paying real close attention, you might have noticed that some of these options were higher up top on the left-hand side. So the options are still there, but again, sometimes things just look a little bit different, but they're the same thing. Enable join before host, I like that option personally. If you don't click this, then what happens is people just get a message that says something like, waiting for the host to begin this meeting, something like that. So I like to leave that on, mute participants. This is great. That way somebody doesn't have a bunch of sound in the background and they join your video conference and all of a sudden you're hearing dishes or pets or something crazy in the background. So muted on entry, that just makes it so that there aren't a lot of distractions when people join. So I like the waiting room. Everybody I'm thinking is going to join is in my class, so they all have an OSU name.number. I'm going to make them sign in with that first and foremost. And then for alternative hosts, we've got advanced options here. I know that I'm going to say Tara is my TA for this example, so I'll go ahead and type her name and hit save.
I'm honored.
Thanks. So here's the good thing about using the integration. This is why you might use it. Is that when I make a meeting over here on the left in CarmenZoom, it won't show up automatically in my Carmen course. I would have to make the meeting, grab the link, share it out either in announcements or however you feel like is the best way for you to share that. But if I make it here in Carmen, already, if my student clicks on Zoom, they will see a list of the lecture rooms here that they can, for them, that'll say join instead of, since I own this course, it says start or delete the meeting. But for them, there will be a button that says join. And for each day, each Monday, in this case that I have a lecture, it'll say the topic of lecture and it'll have a join button and they never have to look for that link. So isn't that nice? So another thing you might consider is maybe you want to have an office hour. So we can kind of look through that. So if your office hour, so I'll do a different example here. If your office hour isn't actually regular, you can do recurring meeting. And there's an option here. I'm going to pause here real quick because I want you to see that this exists. Recurring meeting, no fixed time. Do that first. Once you do that, boom, all the time and the date stuff goes away. So this is just going to be an office hour that like maybe you schedule with somebody over email or something like that. And then you say, okay, join me at the office hour link, right? So let me just go ahead and click through these things. Over this meeting passcode, join before host. Up to you if you want to do waiting room. If it's scheduled, maybe not. I'll just leave that off for now. And then yes, authenticated users. So I'll hit save. And then let's go back into Zoom and see what that looks like. So that's what it'll look like for you and very similarly for them. So they'll have all the lecture links with the dates and then there'll kind of just be this recurring office hour thing. So if you say, hey, let's meet and talk about your exam Tuesday at 11 and then just use the office hour link. So then your student will just log into Carmen and then be able to click join right from here and you don't have to worry about sending them a link or anything crazy like that. So that was kind of a lot. So I'm gonna stop my share real quick and pause, bring my PowerPoint back up, and feel free to type into the chat. I'd love to know what questions you have because again, that was a good amount of content. And while you think about questions that you have, I'm gonna go ahead and bring the PowerPoint back. Okay. Tara, do you want to let me know some of the questions that we haven't quite gotten to yet? I didn't want to spend too much time scrolling since I did so much time talking.
Yeah. We have answered most of the ones up above.
Okay.
So a couple of folks have asked about Zoom capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So how many people can be on there at a time?
I want to say it's 250. Does that sound right?
I thought it was 300, but it could have changed since I heard it.
Yeah, I'm curious if they might have changed it. So I don't have off the top of my head an answer that I'm super sure about. I feel like it's about 250, maybe a little bit higher. But if that number is relevant for you, email CarmenZoom@osu.edu, and they will let you know the exact current number.
And did you already address non-OSU hosts being added, Queenie?
Oh, no, I haven't. That's an excellent question. So non-OSU hosts. So I just showed you how you can add somebody on the back end if they are OSU. If they're not an OSU host, they have to join the meeting first. And then within the meeting, you bring up the participants list. So I think you can actually see that. So if you go down to the bottom of your screen with your mouse, or if you're on mobile, just give your phone a tap so that that bar shows up at the bottom. You should be able to navigate yourself to a participants list. And when you are a host, you can choose whoever you want in that participants list and elevate them to a host, but they have to be in the meeting with you first. You wouldn't be able to add them on the back end if they're not OSU.
And Jason confirmed that at least online, what we're seeing is 300
Okay.
capacity.
Thank you for that.
A couple of questions around recording. Can you record a meeting at the same time that you're creating meetings? And another that was looking at, can people be in multiple Zoom meetings at the same time?
Sorry, what was that first one? Can you record meetings?
As you're making them?
Oh, yes, we're recording this one right now. So we signed in first and we hit the record button. And I believe all of you should have seen a little message pop up as a participant to say, hey, this meeting's being recorded. Are you sure you're okay with this? And you kind of get the option to either come in or to leave if you're not into that. So yes, we are recording right now. And what was that second question? Whether you can be part of multiple meetings?
Yes.
In Zoom, like outside of the OSU version, there is an option for you to be able to do that. But in OSU's version of it, CarmenZoom, you are not able to do that. I think there were possibly our tech team had some reasons to leave that to leave that option off. So in CarmenZoom.osu.edu, I'm not aware of us being able to join meetings simultaneously at this time.
Yeah. And honestly, doesn't that sound like a disaster?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. How do you invite non-OSU guests as participants?
Oh, yes. So I guess that's the portion I didn't quite show. I can show that again. So when you make the meeting, once you hit save, there is, actually, you know what? I think it'll be easier if I just show you. I feel like every time I switch back to the PowerPoint, I'm not on the right slide, so I apologize for that. Okay, let me share my screen again here. So currently, are you seeing both of the screens still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make one meeting so I don't have so many of them. I already have many. Okay, so once you hit save, there's an invite link here. And the reason why this link is so long is because we included the passcode. And so there's some sort of encryption thing going on here that makes this link huge. But you basically just copy this link, and whoever you send this link to will be able to join, and they won't have to type in that passcode actually. So alternatively, if you hit copy invitation, this is another reason that Zoom is kind of really nice sometimes, is that so if you're joining with a link, There's your link right there, and you can copy all that information. There's a passcode in case people do need it. There's options for mobile. So usually what I say when I send a link to people is I'll send them the link, and then I might, for us, I usually choose like Chicago, for instance. I'll send them the phone number and just say, this is a backup option. We'd prefer that everybody joins on a device like through Zoom, but if for some reason you have a tech issue, it's nice to have a phone number. Yeah.
I apologize. Some folks are not seeing what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Let me pause real quick.
Yeah.
Go back to desktop view. Okay. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
You see, okay, good. So here's the invite link I was talking about. Apologize about that. So there's the invite link. If you copy that, people will see it. And then if you click on copy invitation, it gives you everything. So there's the link again. There's the passcode if you need it. And then you choose one of these phone numbers, whichever one applies, and send it out to your audience. Or you can grab all of these if you have people coming from all over the place, that they can dial in as a backup option. Here's other things they might need. If they use the phone number, they do need a meeting ID. It'll ask them for that, so they have to key that in. And here's the password, because they may have to key that in as well. And then this option, I doubt many of you are using this, but some of you might be, is that if you have an H.323 video conference system, such as like a Polycom or one of those other brand names, you would need an IP address to be able to join the meeting. So Zoom actually lets you do that as well. So if you feel like you have a need for that, that's there. And then a lot of this other stuff is just kind of other helpful text. So that's the full invitation. And for anyone either in or outside of OSU, you just have to make sure they have the link. And then I always provide the link and the meeting ID and the passcode just in case it decides to ask for those at some point. And that way I make sure people know how to get in. What else do we have?
Do guests outside of OSU need to have the Zoom app to join? Depends on
for that part, it doesn't really matter whether they're inside or outside of OSU. The app, whether or not you need the app, really just depends on what device you're on. So if you're on a phone or a tablet, you will have to have the app to join. If you're on a computer, app will give you full functionality, and browser will give you a little bit limited functionality.
And if I said Zoom integration, can people join into the meeting from CarmenZoom? Do I have to be in one or the other, or are the two platforms linked?
They are linked. Let me go ahead and share screen again so I can show you what that looks like. Sometimes I have it all planned and I forget to show you. So, so I added all of these Zoom meetings here for my lecture and my office hour. And I did want to show you that on, whoops, one moment. So in CarmenZoom, if I look at meetings, I have all the normal ones that you saw before, but all of the ones that I made in Carmen will then populate and show up here. So that's also what, I'm glad you asked that. That's also what I meant by, if you go into here in Carmen, you have limited ability to add polls and breakout rooms. Whereas if I go into the room here, I can create polls here. On the Carmen side, I won't bother clicking on it, but on the Carmen side, you get an option to add polls, but you have to upload the polls via CSV, like a spreadsheet. So you can download a CSV template, you put all your poll questions into a spreadsheet, and you have to upload it. And that's the only way to get polls uploaded to a meeting, like the one you did earlier in this meeting here. That's the only way you can do it through the CarmenZoom integration. But in CarmenZoom.osu.edu, in the full site, I can just hit add, and then I can type in my poll question. So this is the only option that you get, single choice or multiple choice. It's a very, very simple single or multiple choice question. And that's it. There's, if you wanted like different, other different, more complex types of questions, you can't do that. But this is possible, and you don't have to, you can do it manually. You don't have to do a spreadsheet if you don't want to, if you're using this side. And then with breakout rooms, I'll show you through here. You get this really nice option to be able to create rooms and also import from CSV.
And I think that may have answered a question we had earlier about where to enable breakout rooms from.
Okay.
Somebody asked if it was at the 3 dots that say more. Another question that came in, if you set up recurrent meetings, do the students need an invitation each time, or do they log into the course in Carmen and then join?
The way that I have it set up here, they shouldn't need an invitation each time. They can just log in and join. So if I were to go to settings, let me see if I can actually blow this screen up a little bit. So there's a button on the right-hand side that says student view. So if you're ever messing around in here and you want to see, oh, you know, what is it that my students see? If I click on student view, so this is what it'll look like, what my course looks like for them. So when they log in, they know that my lecture is, what did I say, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11. So they log into Zoom and they will automatically see, depending on what day it is, they'll be able to see this and they'll be able to get a join button. So there's no messing about with having to send invitations and all that kinds of stuff. It's already there for them.
Another question that we had was, can you share your screen and show me how to limit the share to PowerPoint only?
I cannot do that. Zoom won't let me show you that necessarily, but there are help articles on that that you can look at, and there should be screenshots there. So what it basically looks like is that you'll have several boxes that you can choose from. So when you hit share screen, there will be several boxes on the screen, and one will say desktop. So that's everything, including all of your desktop icons, any notifications you get. So that sometimes can be a little scary if you don't have stuff all cleaned up. Or you can choose any application that you have open. So if it's a Word document, or it's a PowerPoint, or it's something else, so it'll just be represented by each of those boxes, and you click on the thumbnail that you want to, of the document that you want to share, and it'll only share that. So I have when I had my PowerPoint open and I was sharing that, I could have had other Word documents up, I could have had other things up, and nobody would see any of that stuff. So I can kind of have everything laid out, but everyone would just be focused on the one thing that I shared.
I also just dropped a bunch of links over in the chat of specific help articles.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yes, that does help explain things. So we only have a few more minutes, and I want to show you real quick how to get to attendance reports and recording. So for recording, you probably do see a recording button at the bottom of your screen right now. And again, because this is my meeting room, if you click on it, it wouldn't allow you to automatically record, but when it's yours, you can. There's two options. You can either record to cloud, or you can record to your desktop. And I would definitely recommend recording to cloud, because that will enable auto transcription for you, which we need for accessibility purposes. And let me go ahead and share my desktop one more time here to show you where to get those attendance reports. I'm going to go ahead and come out of that Carmen instance. Okay, so when you're in CarmenZoom, you can go to reports here and go to usage, and then you can actually filter by date. So in this way, when you click on any of these particular ones, you can also hit show unique users. And I highly recommend you clicking on this button, because otherwise you end up with duplicates of people showing up in your spreadsheet. So anytime anyone's connection drops or anyone logs out or back in, it'll show their name again and again. And so if you click show unique users, it will get rid of those duplicates and just show you this person was here. And for recordings, as long as you hit record to cloud, all of the recordings will show up in the recordings list here. And if you hit share, you have the option of saying whether you want to share publicly or only authenticated users. If it's for a class, definitely choose authenticated users. People can sign in and view it. And then some of these other options you can look through and see if they make sense for you. And then copy sharing information to the clipboard. And as long as you paste that somewhere, it'll just basically tell you exactly the link to get to. Let me see if I can. Hold on one second. I'll open a document real quick so you can actually see what that looks like. So share screen, desktop again. Okay, so for instance, that's what it would look like right here if you copied that information. Okay, So what other questions do we have? We're right at 11:59. So I'm going to put the PowerPoint back on just to show you some of those further resources that we have for you. And we already talked through some of those things in the slides and took questions. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through these. And I can stay on for a few more minutes for questions as well, but I wanted to make sure you got these links. So for kind of quick technical questions, definitely email carmen@osu.edu. They'll get to you very quickly and easily there. If you feel like you need a more in-depth consultation, you actually want to meet with somebody and talk about some specifics with pedagogy or course planning, things like that, I would definitely recommend going to this consultations with go.osu.edu/odconsults. The resource center, that third link, resourcecenter.od.osu, that's a link where you can get OSU-centered support articles on Zoom, on Carmen Canvas, and many other tools that we offer. We do have a playlist of workshop videos at go.osu.edu/keep teaching videos. So there's a whole playlist there of workshops that we've done over the past few months, and kind of shorter videos as well to show you some of these things that people have been asking us a lot of good questions about. And then lastly, also, we wanted to put an email address for our partners at UITL, which I think currently they're the Drake Institute now, so I do have to change this slide, I apologize, but you should still be able to use that email address and request consults with them. So that's all I have today for any kind of formal content, but like I said, I'm happy to stay on for 10 or 15 minutes longer if people have questions.